Hello and
Hi.
welcome to
Wisdom for Menopause and Beyond.
There we go
There
again.
we go.
So we're going to look at HRT today, which is a bit of a minefield. It's really common, it's really around, and we just thought we would spend half an hour or so just going over a few of the common bits of HRT. Just to see how things go, really.
Yeah, and I think it's because it's something we often get asked. It's something which comes up because we are obviously dealing with menopause and beyond. And sharing those insights we've had both from our own lives but from other experiences from clients, that we've kind of come across, and questions that have been raised in the workshops that we run. So
it's a big deal.
It's a big question, and there's a lot of information and misinformation, I would say, out there.
There's some limited information, and what I see in clinic is a lot of people that are no longer happy, or they've been given it and they don't understand, or they're taking it and it's worse. So I thought we would just sort of
we're trying to explore that whole thing,
common ideas, and then we can always revisit this in another sort of more topical way, especially if you give us some feedback.
Yes, but if you've got particular questions about it.
So we're just going to look at sort of the major a couple of major issues.
We're going to have some kind of, so what we're going to start off with kind of defining it. We're going to look at, is it safe, is it necessary? We're going to look at how people take care of themselves generally, whether or not you're taking HRT, and then we're going to say, maybe what is the way forward, whether you're not taking HRT or whether you are taking HRT. And bear in mind, this is our experience and our and the expertise we have from what we've been doing over the past 25 years. So that's fine, but it's our opinion, is what I would say.
Yeah. So HRT to start with.
Let's start off with saying, what is HRT? So, having never taken it.
HRT is something called hormone replacement therapy, which comes from the idea that as we go through menopause, we lose hormones. Drop them, lose them, leave them in the shopping, who knows, but we lose our hormones, and therefore they need to be replaced. So this is an ideology that's come from, if we have this at 40, surely we must need it at 70. So remembering it's a replacement therapy, which is kind of interesting, because a bit further on we'll get to isn't.
Do you need to be replaced?
So the first thing is, do we need a hormone replacement therapy?
Although, so what? But there are different forms of HRT, aren't there? So there's estrogen, there's
progesterone, there's testosterone.
There's all sorts of hormones that get in the mix.
They get in the mix, and they're not well done. So some people just get estrogen, they get estrogen and progesterone, they get a combined patch. Sometimes it's cream, sometimes they do some things orally. So there's a whole mix, and there's no real given panacea. So I think the first thing to think about is, do we need a replacement therapy? Do we need this? And when we go through menopause, it's certainly a chaotic time, and some people have a less chaotic time than others. So it does seem like it's a good idea. This is all chaos. Surely a pill that gives me that things that I'm losing.
And if you go to the GP, in a sense, this is probably the only thing they've got in their toolbox.
It is the only thing they have in their toolbox. So you go along with the menopause and they go, have some replacement. But when we go through menopause, the way that your hormones work go through a transition, and at the beginning you're healthy and at the end you're healthy. This is a transition time. So the way that you produce estrogen changes, the way that your body produces and uses these hormones changes, and allowing them to change means we reach a settlement of health.
And the kind of estrogen that you're producing also changes.
So you have estradiol.
It's not that it just suddenly vanishes.
It doesn't vanish. At the end of menopause, you have about 40% of the estrogen you had, which is everything you need to run your body, run your brain, run the different systems of your hormones, but not enough to have ovulatory cycles and become pregnant. So we are changing the way that the body works, but is it in a state of need or just a state of change? And I would argue that it's in a state of change rather than a state of, we don't run lacking, we run differently.
And I think it's interesting because there may be people out there that are listening to this that are thinking it was catastrophic, kind of going into perimenopause and going into menopause, and the symptoms were off the scale and all the rest of it. And so if you go to the doctor and they give you this pill, and it seems, and many women do find benefit from it initially, at least, that seems like a pretty good idea. That seems like a pretty good thing, doesn't it?
And it does. And the idea that you think, I'm losing estrogen, therefore I'm taking estrogen and I'm keeping that back. But actually, we've got to think that we're going through a time of change. And taking HRT, the other thing people believe is if I take HRT, I don't go through menopause.
No, well, they do. No, they do go through menopause. I just take it for a number of years, and it's going to happen somehow underneath.
But I won't experience
and then at the end of it, I'll be fine.
I'll come off of it and I'll be fine.
Yeah.
And that isn't the case, because it's been replacing, your body has been changing underneath. These chemicals have been running your body. You come off of it and suddenly the body goes, oh, great, I've got to do menopause.
Menopause now.
and so it can rush in hugely. So it's a question of philosophy to start with, if you like, because it's not a question of I've got this really serious infection and I need antibiotics. I'm not doing that. But this is, I'm going through some symptoms. And the other thing that I think is incredibly beneficial is if the symptoms just hit you from nowhere, you weren't expecting it.
Yeah.
And you think, oh my God, I've got hot flashes, I can't think straight, I'm feeling really depressed, I'm not sleeping, I've got a massive job that I'm supposed to be doing, I'm a school teacher, I'm a nurse, I'm a doctor, it doesn't matter, no job is above another, but something where you're so busy you can't think.
Or somebody that we spoke to recently, I've got twins, I've got 2-year-old twins.
I've got to, how am I going to manage this? And HRT can buy you some time while you think about it.
Yes.
So if you haven't actually given a lot of thought to how you're going to go through menopause, it can buy you some time and make you think of this.
Because that's what it does. It's a blocker. It blocks menopause. You don't go through it magically while you're on HRT. No. That happens. And you had somebody come to you in clinic who was she 85 or something?
Oh yeah, this was a really unfortunate. She was in her 80s, I think about 85, 83, 85. And her form, she'd been on HRT at 40, been given it at 40. Because back in the 70s, it was you hit 40, you were given HRT. It was a wonder drug at the time. And she'd been on it for 40 years. And they didn't make her HRT anymore.
That's right, they went to the company that
they just
stopped.
I think her level was considered unsafe, so they stopped making it. So she would been put on several others because in her age the doctors felt it's best to just continue
keep going.
But none of it worked. None of it hit her in the same way. So at 85, she her period started again. She was bleeding all the time so heavily. She saw the mattress. It was just horrendous. Her mood swings. She wasn't able to cope with any of her hormones, and her body just fell apart. And at 85, this was just it.
The body had been waiting for 40 years.
So she hadn't gone through menopause. So it isn't always. And the other thing is that because our bodies are changing and still aging, even though you may be taking this replacement therapy, what might work for a few months, 6 months, people say, I was great for 5 months and now it's not working anymore. The doctors just kind of add different things in.
It's not working. Take twice as much.
Take some more, change this, change that. And it's very hard to find the happy settlement of it. So although it's supposed to be a replacement, and it definitely can buy you some time, it doesn't buy you not changing and not aging.
No, because unfortunately, I'm sorry if you didn't realise this, but we are all getting older.
So it's not.
I hope that wasn't news to anybody out there. But we are getting older, so we are changing, and things are going to be different. And I'm sorry, you're not ever, no matter what lovely, lovely cream you put on your skin, it's never going to look like you're 20.
Apart from me. And the other the other part of this is it is hormone replacement therapy. And what I tend to see now a lot in clinic is women who are not sleeping. So I had somebody recently who was 40, 3 young children, and wasn't sleeping at all.
I'm thinking that's a good reason if you've got 3 young children.
3 young children. She had business problems, business worries. She was super, super busy. She had lots and lots of things that she was trying to to do. And so you went to the doctors, and with nothing else, he gave her HRT. And she felt so ill. She went back and he gave her some more. And she felt so bad. She contacted me, and we had some bloods done. And she was nowhere near menopause. She was really
still
strong,
fertile,
still fertile, still bleeding, really, really strong hormones. So she was taking a load of hormones on top of hormones. That wasn't really great.
Did it solve the sleeping problem?
And it didn't solve the sleeping problem. She wasn't even sleeping.
Yeah.
So what we did a lot of stress. We talked a lot about stress and different things that were going on for her, and solved it. And she just came off the HRT and felt great. And I would say about 6 years later, she's still having lovely, healthy bleeds. So she's nowhere near this time of life. So it must be remembered, it's not a period problem or a sleeping problem. It's a hormone replacement. And if the hormones aren't the problem, then the replacement isn't the solution.
And it's almost like if she'd been 20 or 30 and she'd had a sleep issue, HRT would not have been prescribed for that. So it's all about thinking about the symptom that you're having rather than what age are you. So it's a kind of interest, and I think that's the problem with HRT and with the whole issue when we talk about menopause, is the whole thing with HRT and menopause and stuff like that is tied in with how we feel about aging generally.
It is.
So it's quite hard to pull out those different strands, but we're going to attempt to keep on looking at the HRT issue, but bear in mind that we realise it is in that context of, and if you don't want to get older, and if you're having an issue about it and you suddenly realise, oh my God, you've seen the first wrinkle. I mean, if you've seen the first wrinkle at 40, you're bloody lucky. But it's almost like, so that in a sense is a whole other big issue, and which I think we'll kind of come back to. We will come back to that. But we're looking at HRT as a thing. We're attempting to look at HRT as a thing.
The other thing I get asked a lot is it safe?
Yes.
Now, it's very interesting, because some years ago it was considered, in the 70s, it was considered it's safe for life. Then some numbers came out and it was considered not safe. Then it went to 10 years. Then it was 5 years. Now it's back to 10 years, and we're on the verge of going, it's fine for the rest of your life.
Forever.
And it's very interesting, because the studies, I was just reading some studies today, actually, or yesterday, I think. And they're doing a lot of studies that are looking at HRT and mortality. That is early death. So does take HRT change the expected life expectancy? And the idea is no, actually, there's no correlation between taking HRT and early death. Therefore, it is safe. But what they are finding is that there is correlation between HRT and potentially increased breast cancer. But the breast cancer is survivable and not killing you.
It is.
So although there are some figures that connect it, and you will always find studies and studies, but it seems that there is a consensus that there is more breast cancer than there was, but people are surviving it better.
So when you take HRT, say you're taking HRT and you get breast cancer, you are much more likely to survive the breast cancer. So it doesn't lead to early death, but it leads to quite an unpleasant experience.
Junction. Exactly. Now, because there are many factors, and these studies are not ruling out all of the other things, because it's very complex running these studies and to isolate things. I can't actually sit here and confidently say
A equals B.
HRT equals breast cancer, but the figures may suggest that, but breast cancer is survivable. So HRT does not indicate decreased life expectancy,
which is what is being studied.
What is actually being studied. There's a study called the Million Woman Study, and there's a few studies around.
So they've changed the goalposts.
They've changed the goalposts, and they don't do that. So that's important, that when we hear safe and effective, it's what are we doing? And there's always risks, benefits.
Any medication, whatever it is,
paracetamol, aspirin, antibiotics. I mean, antibiotics will keep you alive. They'll also kill you.
So there are risks. There are risks and benefits of any medication, and the protocol generally is the lowest possible dose for the least amount of time. So that is a medical protocol across the board.
But HRT seems to they've decided that the least possible time is the rest of your life, and the lowest dose is when you don't feel really ghastly. But so one thing that I'd like to put in that mix is it necessary? Have we got alternatives? And it's sort of, if you've got really, fast sepsis and you don't take antibiotics, then you're dying. I'm sorry, that's it.
That is necessary.
That is necessary. And it doesn't matter, you say you're going to feel really bad, it's going to wipe out everything. That's right. It's life or no life. So is this a real necessary risk? And I think there are some emotional problems, physical problems, like we're talking about somebody that's really suddenly got these terrible symptoms, they're not coping with their kids. I think there's a big argument that for a short time this might be necessary while somebody really thinks about it. But is it necessary for the rest of your life, or is there something you can do about it?
We would kind of be probably on that. It's not necessary for the rest of your life. Because we feel that it's important to go through the menopausal change. It's important for women for a whole variety of reasons, and if you've listened to any of all of our stuff, you'll know why. But it's not just an ideological thing, we feel. It's about a kind of, well, anyway, we're not going into that now. No, I'm just talking about HRT. But it's like, where was I going with this?
Well, we were saying, is it useful? Is it
necessary?
Safe? Is it necessary? And I think the safety of it is, as you say, the least possible time, the least possible dose. There's the safety, but the rest of your life doesn't feel like the least possible time.
No.
Going through menopause, this change is, I think, necessary. And I think it's a positive change if we get it right. So is it useful?
I mean, I think it's that whole thing of, and I quite often liken it to, if you've not thought about menopause before, if it just kind of suddenly arrives in your life out of the blue, probably unlikely. Some of those symptoms will be going on, you just won't have noticed them. It's a, and I say, if your house is on fire, which is how people kind of sometimes feel that that's what's happened. Suddenly my house is on fire, and you don't ring up the fire brigade and say, can I have a new smoke alarm? You just say, come and bloody put the hoses on it and put it out. And I kind of feel that's almost like how we often experience menopause, and why HRT seems like a great idea, because it suddenly appeared in our lives and we need it to be solved.
And so, because in my head I'm still 20, it's always a shock when I look in the mirror. It's kind of like when the symptoms suddenly reach you, you think, I know I'm going to go through menopause, but it's over there. It's over there. So
surely, look, I'm only 55. Shouldn't be happening yet.
So there's a lot of things that happen at menopause when it suddenly comes to you about, oh my goodness, life is finite. Oh my goodness, I am getting older. Oh my goodness, I'm not really wanted any more children, but now I won't be able to have any more. There's so many mental and emotional issues around that I think in that moment HRT can buy you some time. So I think in that case, it might be useful.
It's useful in that sense, and it is one of those things. It's not going to turn the clock back. It's not going to give you, that kind of magic bullet and all the rest of it. And it's one of those things in the menu, but it's like no one thing is relevant for all women.
No. And but the other thing is, we are told that we need it.
Oh yes, you don't have any symptoms. 25% of women don't have any symptoms, but you still need to take HRT because that will be good for your bones.
It's good for your bones, it's good for your muscles, it's good for your health, it's good for osteoporosis. And a lot of people said, my goodness, I was so achy, my bones were achy, my joints were achy. I took HRT and they all disappeared. Therefore, if I don't take HRT, this is the rest of my life. I remember grandma being covered in osteoporosis. I remember my mum not being able to move. I don't want that. I want my health. Athletes, people that want to look after their bones, people that want to look after themselves. It's kind of this, it's going to keep me healthy. Now, there's definitely a very important part of that is valid. But I think looking carefully at your diet, looking at supplements and your bone health, and I think bone density and bone health are slightly different things. And just because your bones, keeping your bones healthy and strong not with chemicals, but with diet, with
exercise, weight-bearing exercise,
and really good supplements. There's no question that you need good supplements. So one of the things that I hear a lot is I need calcium to keep my bones strong.
Yeah.
I drink milk, or I make my kids drink milk.
That's what we were told when we were at school.
You need it, but actually drinking milk makes your bones thinner, because interestingly enough, we have loads of calcium in our diet. We're not a calcium depleted diet. We have lots and lots of calcium, but we don't absorb it very well. It's very, very hard to absorb. So you need things like magnesium and boron and K2 and D3 to absorb the calcium properly into your body. So
more calcium is not the solution.
It's not more calcium. More calcium actually blocks magnesium and zinc from being absorbed into your body, because there's so much calcium, the body's gathering it all up, and then it can't absorb magnesium, so we become magnesium deficient, become zinc deficient. So having a really nice balanced diet is very important for the bones. And if you're not so hot on looking at all of those things in one meal, because you've got to take them at the same time, have a really, really good bone support, which is not just calcium, but it's in a food state, and it's got boron and magnesium and K2. These things
to your health food.
Go to your really good
health food professional.
And the other thing is, you're supposed to need estrogen, and we do, but the estradiol that we have is our childbearing estrogen that we need for ovulatory cycles. But we move to estrone, which does everything that we need, and that is created from the adipose tissue. It's created from the adrenaline, and it mixes together and forms estrogen that we need. If we're taking it externally and chemically, the body isn't going to be doing that. So there's a natural change to converting other kinds of estrogen, and then balancing our own progesterone with it will actually happen if you leave it alone with good supplements.
So what we're kind of saying is there are many other ways to be thinking about your health generally. So when you look at, if you're coming into this period of you're coming up to perimenopause, menopause, and you're kind of thinking, crikey, what am I going to do? It's like there are many other things to be thinking about. It's like, well, I could be looking at my diet. Maybe my diet is a bit off. Maybe I've got, maybe it's a bit too carby. And also, we have that thing, alcohol and caffeine. Eek, and it's interesting, because I remember somebody saying to me, well, I've got these friends who are kind of complaining about, their perimenopausal symptoms, and yet they're still sinking a bottle of wine a night. And you're going, yeah, well, that might do it. Well, so it's like you have to have a balance between.
You do have to have a balance, but you don't have to be brilliant. One of the worst things for menopause
not absolute
is carbs. Carbs are worse than alcohol, they're worse than caffeine, although people's tolerances are slightly different on caffeine. I do really well on caffeine. I drink 7 or 8 cups a day and it calms me down. Other people have one and it speeds them up, but that's just people's tolerances. One of the things to look at is really, really, really important is your gut health. Your gut health is the most important part of your body that does the conversion and elimination of all of these excess estrogens that are in your body and absorbs them. If you haven't got good gut health, the body becomes quite toxic, and therefore alcohol on top of toxicity. It's a bit like if you got really drunk yesterday and then you have another couple of drinks today, you feel a lot worse than if you just had another couple of drinks today. So the toxicity in your body from all of these hormonal changes, including HRT, because that's another thing that's going in the body, these other things like caffeine and alcohol affect it. So keeping your gut really, really strong is another good way to avoid, if you're looking to look at other ways other than HRT, keeping really good gut health, and that good gut health will improve the toxicity.
And whether or not you decide to take HRT and all that kind of stuff, keeping yourself healthy or looking at your gut health and your health generally is a good idea.
It's a really good idea. And you can always have a look at things like your hair and your nails, and your general skin condition. They're a really good thing to look at. And if you finding that your nails are a bit ridged, oh, they're not very, they used to be great and now they're breaking, and your hair, I mean, things change a bit, but you think generally it's looking a little bit, or it's not growing as it used to, then I would really look at your diet, cut the carbs, cut the sugars, because they're your problem. They really are. And you need, I'm afraid, same old leafy green vegetables, the brassicas, the
sprouts, love them.
Really good stuff, a really nice balanced diet. And if you are a bit lacking in your diet, don't feel shamed about going to your health food stop and getting nice multivitamins. And you do need omegas as well. Evening primrose oil, omega oil, sea buckthorn. These are really good things for your body generally. So if you're not doing well on things like skin and hair, that's a good indication that you need to just improve the diet.
It's all about balance, unfortunately.
It is.
We can't just say this is this. And so that's it. So we've kind of thought, so we've kind of hopefully, so we've talked about what it is, what's an HRT, the whole kind of questions about safe, necessary, why people take it, and also kind of saying that you just generally need to look after yourself generally.
I think
so there's that.
It's a lot of support. Planning, we do talk a lot about planning, but I think part of this is emotionally, and I think a lot of people, the shock of this, the reality of this has brought all sorts of emotional things. So this is probably a good time to take stock of your life generally, about where you want to be creatively, because what I see with HRT is people lose that creative energy that comes with this is the rest of my life. And they keep doing what they're doing, which is because hormonally you're stuck. Hormonally you're stuck, emotionally you're stuck, physically you're stuck. And actually there's an awful lot apart from your estrogen that's running your body, and it's trying to get you somewhere where you're not going.
And it's interesting thinking about, it is those kind of things. I just remember, like, this is a bit of a random thought, but it was almost like when I was a child, what did I think? I wanted to live forever. And then you'd have all these stories about living forever, but actually somebody had wished to be immortal, but they still got older, so they were still alive, at 300, but they were all a bit crusty. I think, no, that's not what I meant. So it's that kind of thing about having that realization that things change and things move on and things are different, and I really, I don't want to go back to being 20. No. But it's almost like it's all of those different kind of things.
I would be now with my 20-year-old body, and I think that's probably what people are doing with HRT. But it isn't, because there's a lot of like moving into the next phase in my life that the brain is ready to do, that the body's ready to do, and the HRT is actually holding you back a little bit. And the other thing that's really worth mentioning is that there are small things that can change. So if you have there was a case that we had a woman that she had a hysterectomy at 35, so she was on HRT, and at 54, kind of fit and healthy, but for no reason, just had a very small TIA, which is a very small, tiny bleed in the brain that was fine, and that half an hour later, absolutely fine, not a stroke. This is very TIA, and the doctor said, "That's it, you're off HRT
overnight.
That's it, done." And she was going. It was like the torrent began. It was like her hot flushes came all the time because she'd been on it for 20 years. So the hot flushes were there. The body was just going, oh, now I can do this. So she needed and didn't have a plan B.
So however you feel about HRT and whether you think it's right for you or not, it's like having a plan. And we talk about that a lot. And we kind of say, even if you're not, we talk about menopause and perimenopause, average, starting at 48, done by 42. There are, it's probably between 40 and 55 is what we kind of look at like those things. But really, from the age of 35, you should be planning to have a great menopause, because that's what we're about, having a great menopause. How is that good? How is that transition going to be smooth and easily managed so that you go from that one healthy state to another healthy state? Let's look at that. And we kind of start by saying, what are the things you might use when you don't feel yourself? When you think, what are the things you use to support you? Now, for some people, and for me, it was homeopathy. For some people, it might be acupuncture. For some people, it might be supplements. It might be diet. It might be, which is also for me running into the sea screaming. So what are the things that you feel that actually, exercise? I just feel so much better if I just go for a run. Great. So it's almost like when you do start to feel, are things changing? Is my cycle changing? What's going on? You have a raft of things that you can try. Let's just go there first. Let's go with a thing that I know works for me.
And the other thing about medication is because it's not it can feel for some women like a life-saving moment,
yes.
with it, which I understand. But you can try things, and you can also try HRT 3rd or 4th or 5th. So it doesn't have to be. People say, I've got to do the medication first, but actually you could try a couple of other things. And they didn't work for me. I'm just going to do HRT. And I do see people that have tried it. No, I can't deal with it right now. They go on to HRT. Then in 2 years' time, they've thought about things a bit differently. Their body has aged a little bit. Things have changed. And then they say, now I'm going to try. I tried this over here. I'm going to try that again. Or I tried that over there. I'm not going to try that again. And so you can.
And it's likely it will be many things. There'll be you don't have to say, oh, great, I tried acupuncture and it didn't work. HRT. No, let's have a look at what are the many things that you might use. It's because it's unlikely that one thing only is going to do it.
And the other thing that you can do is, if you are on HRT and you think, oh, I don't know, it's kind of annoying, I have to keep going or whatever, you can stay on this and sort of build your body up. So although HRT doesn't really sort of blocks you going through menopause, if you're doing lots of other things underneath, it can find it easier to come off or reduce the HRT. So with your doctor, you can say, I'm doing all these other things. I'm feeling really good. Could I lower my dose for a short period of time? And you can discuss that with your doctor or medical professional. And they are usually incredibly supportive of because you know what, if it doesn't work, we can up it again. So you're not, it's not worth thinking I have to stay on this or nothing. But there is a definite case, there's a lot of things that work with HRT that can wean you off of it, so that your body has a slower changeover.
And think about the symptoms that you had, or when you were thinking, oh my god, I need them to stop. What were they? Were they hot flushes? Were they mood swings? Were they this, that and the other? Okay, what are the other things I could do to support myself in that way? And that also helps you with a plan B for, say, for instance, suddenly the protocol changes. Oh, you've been on it for 10 years. Oh, we've got taken off you next week. So rather than having a panic, what you're also doing then is you're assessing and getting that information together. And then you're kind of thinking, when you do feel fed up with it or you don't want to take it anymore, you have a whole number of things that you could try.
And I do see a lot of women in that place that if they're so worried that if this changes, and it can change at the drop of a hat, you just need a different protocol, one study to come out, one thing, one of your family members gets breast cancer, they say your risk is too great.
Because then there was a recent study about the heart disease and heart problems. Oh, right, that gives you another counterindication that you're not going to get it. So you're not kind of in control of that. But what you are in control of is the amount of information that you have and you've gathered together. So if you consider, my God, the worst that could happen is I suddenly can't take this anymore, you've got quite a lot of things that you could do instead.
So you can take it and then give yourself a period of time. You can take it and sort of try other things at the same time and see if you can wean off. Or you could take it second, third or fourth.
Or you could not take it.
Or you could just not take it. But you can actually think, I'm not sure about that yet, but it's still an option. So you don't have to worry.
And I think in the context of 25% of women have no symptoms going through menopause. They just sail through it. Great. And you probably know one of these people. They'll probably be annoying. But anyway, so they just go through. And another 40% of women may experience one or two symptoms, but they're in a manageable level. So when you look at that, that is kind of the majority of women are going to not have symptoms or have symptoms that are copable with.
But the other interesting statistic is by the time you're nearly through menopause, 6 months to a year away, 80% of women, I hate this percentage, 80% of women have the worst symptoms. So when your symptoms are unmanageable,
horrendous, yeah.
It's a
nearly there.
It's probably a bit like childbirth. You know, I'm not doing it now. I'm done.
Right, go home and watch ladies. Go home and watch ladies.
So actually, it's probably worth sticking with it, but it's just a little bit of thought, because it's what I see is people go, I had no choice. In order to be fit and healthy, I needed to. So there are options, there are choices, and sometimes they're in your domain, sometimes they're taken away from you. So do have a plan B.
And information is power.
Do look after your gut.
Do
look after your diet and supplement. I'm sorry, but diet is important.
And
you will be just as fit and well. You will not be depleted of a vital hormone. Your body will rebalance into health. As we say, one healthy state to another healthy state.
So despite our best efforts, we did go off on a number of different kind of things, but that is because HRT isn't something which exists in isolation from everything else. So hopefully what we've done is given you a kind of some things to think about, some idea of actually, oh, I probably just need to get a bit more information about this or this, and kind of have a look at that. And just don't feel forced into anything.
No.
Taking it or not taking it, it is your decision.
And if you want to leave any comments, you want to let us know, that's great. And as they say, like and subscribe. Couldn't resist it. Okay.